So we're going to do the rose leaf now. Now I'm going to teach you the single one, and then I want you to practice on the actual stem itself, because I think it's nice just to show you a small area. The rose took quite a long time. So if I just show you, it's one technique, you know, but it's a really cool technique actually. And depending on the colours of greens that you prefer, you know, you choose what you like. But I'm going to use number 47, number 43, number 173, and possibly number 175. We'll see how we get on. Now, when you look at your colour chart, you will see that number 47 is paler than number 43. So it's always worth having your colour chart in front of you, or colour out all the colours that you're going to use and then write the numbers above them so you can see what they look like, rather than assuming that number 47 is darker than number 43, because it's not. All right, so I'm going to tell you the colours as we go along. So I'm going to work slightly differently this time. So I'm going to put my mid colour down and then my dark, and then we're going to blend through with a mix of colour. All right, so I'm going to do number 47, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the stem. And again, I'm allowing that brush nib to do its work. And then what I tend to do is go into the pointy area of the leaf and pull out. And I kind of go around the edge of it. Because it's only a small area, you can kind of do this, because by the time you get around the edge, it won't have completely evaporated, so we're all right. So when you're doing this one, what you're going to do is you practice. And by all means, if you want to send it in on, or post it rather, not send it in by post, because it'll end up costing you a fortune in postage charges. But if you want to put your work on the Inklily campus page, then I can have a look at it from the Innovation Hub, and then we can give you some feedback. And I'm one of those teachers that will give you honest feedback. So if I think you might need to do a little bit more with the blender, or you might need to do this a little bit more, or that a little bit more, or use the dot technique, I'll tell you, because I want you to be the best that you can be. And that's how we learn and how we grow. So I'm going around the edge here, and you can see I'm just using that nib to get into those really fine details. And when we were choosing the designs that we were going to use for the Inklily classes, these images were chosen specifically to teach you how to use that brush nib, to get into those fine areas, to be delicate with your laying down of colour, because it's all important. So I'm just working my way around this edge now. I used to do this when I was little. I always used to colour around the outside edge first and then fill it in. Stuck with me, that. So like that, right, and then I'm going to bring this colour, and I'm going to then use my small circular movements. And again, this is why we didn't want the pens to get darker as you went over, because you'll still get that seamless blend even though you've done it in two different sections. And we're going to work this round, and we're going to leave a white space in the middle, okay? But I'm kind of follow the shape of the leaf here. So I'm kind of going to round that there, like that. So it's coming up to that point. It's kind of bending the same way that the leaf would itself. Okay. Now I'm going to use number 43, and I'm going to go around that outside edge again. And this is where, if you were using an inferior nib, or ink that, or a nib rather, that doesn't control the flow of the ink that's in the barrel, you would start to see bleed out now, because you're working in a small space and you're adding two layers of colour directly on top of each other. But we're not worried about that, because we're using Inklily pens. So we don't even need to think about that. And don't worry if you go out of the lines, we can rectify that as well. Remember what we did when we went round the outside with a warm grey or a cool grey. We can push that colour back in. We taught you in lesson 1 how to remove colour. So I'm going around here now, and I'm adding that dark. colour into here. The reason I'm doing that is because we haven't got every single consecutive shade of green, we're going to make our own green up as our light colour. And that's a really cool thing to do because it means you're mixing a palette. And you can either do that on mylar or acetate or any kind of plastic, a tile, something like that, anything that's non-porous. Or you can do it pen to pen blend. So I'm going to teach you that today. We've probably covered it a little bit in the foliage, but just to show you how cool it is. So eventually we might bring out a colour that's perfect to work as a light shade of this. But you know what? We might just be able to make our own. So I'm going to leave that as it is now. So I've got a definite dark and a definite mid there. And we're going to now start to create our light colour. So I'm going to go back to number 47. I'm going to try it with both of these colours. All right, so I'm going to use 173 first, which is a more yellowy colour. And I'm going to take the paler colour, which is 173, and I'm going to pick up, making sure that I get right to the tip on my palest colour, I'm going to pick up some of this colour. And rather than going straight into my leaf, I'm going to work it down here. So I can have a look and I can decide whether I prefer the more yellowy one, which is going to blend out to that, which actually is a really good shade for working with that one, or whether I want to use the 175, which is a bit of a cooler tone. It's a bit more of a bluey green. And you can see that quite clearly, or you will when it dries. That's more yellowy, more like a bit of a more of an appley colour, if you like a golden delicious apple, compared to a more of a, it's not a blue green, but it's a more icy colour, if you like. So I think I'm going to go with this one, which was 173, but it's up to you, whichever you prefer. It's your colouring, you choose, or try both, just do a different leaf and different ones. So I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to start where my mid colour already is, and I'm going to blend from there up. Okay, and I'm going to blend, I'm going to soften that out, and I'm going to let that ink go back to its natural colour. And you can see there it's getting a bit yellower. All right, now I don't want it that yellow, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a bit more. And you'll get to a stage with this and you think, oh, this isn't looking right. Go with it, keep going, okay? Because you will get there. You don't have to worry about the ink bleeding out or oversaturating your cardstock. So let's just learn and go with it and see where we get to, all right? You might not get it how you want it first time. That's all right. Doesn't matter. It's not a test. And I'm just going to follow that through, and then I'm going to leave that little bit of yellow just at the top there, I think. Okay. And then I'm just going to brush that nib out. Now, as well as brushing that nib out, brush your other nib out. Because what can happen is when you're picking up, you're kind of pushing this colour into there, but this colour's also going into your darker one. And you can end up with a little area that becomes a little bit darker and a bit sticky almost with a concentration of ink. So just make sure that you brush both of them out. You're not going to damage the nibs at all, so don't worry about that, but just get into the habit of doing that. Right, so I'm now going to pop my lid back on 173, and I don't know whether you've noticed, but in this class, I haven't been pushing the nibs right back on, so they're easier to get off when you're working. Instead of having to stop and pull the nib off, just push it back in, but don't click it in. And that's something that I've just been working with recently, and I thought, you know what, it's a good tip, we'll pass that on. So back to my 47. And I'm going to start now to blend that up. So I'm blending that dark into my mid with my mid colour. And then I'm going over where we went originally with that mid colour. And I'm using these stroke, like that flick technique that we learnt, because I want to very gently blend that through. And this might be one where you have to let it dry and see what it looks like. But you can see now we've got this light area here, but for me that's still a bit too harsh, the line between it. So I'm going to go back to my 173 and I'm going to pick up a little bit more of it again. And now I'm just going to start to blend from here. I love this technique. And you can just go in and don't overload it, just do it a little bit at a time. And take your time and soften that through. I'm going to just bring that up a little bit more there and just get rid of that really harsh yellow bit there. Okay? Brush it off. Brush it off. Put your lids back on, make sure you put the right lid on the right pen. Because I did that the other day. I spent half an hour looking for a colour and realised I put the wrong lid on the pen. So 143 now, I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to add a little bit more of this dark in. Okay? Because we've blended over with that mid, I just want to go back in and just kind of add right at the tips of that leaf, just add that dark back in. And because 43 and 47 are quite close together, you can get away with doing that. It's not like when we did the reds with the mushrooms where they were quite far, you know, as far as tones are concerned, they were quite far away from each other. With this green, it's not that far away, so we can get away with doing this and we can just soften that blend through when we've finished. But it's quite nice to try different greens, you know, just have a play. Stamp out a load of the individual leaves and try the different greens and see what you prefer. Because we'll all have our favourite colours. You know, we all love different greens, different tones of greens, different blues. So just have a play around. That's the fun of it. So now I'm just going to pull that dark through with my mid. Not going right to the tips, as you can see, because otherwise I'm just going to eliminate all that colour again. And then you can just do a little flick, maybe coming up here. Just soften into there. And then if you feel like you just want to blend that through a little bit more, just keep going back. It's actually really good if you put some of this on your mailer as well and pick it up from there. Excuse me. And then we just go back and finish that off. Like that. And then I'm going to walk away from that and let that evaporate, and I'll show you when it's finished. So that's now evaporated, and there's no point you sitting there watching, waiting for it to happen, because you don't see a change. You walk away, you make a cup of tea, you come back, and it's ready. So I'm just going to turn this around and show you, and you can see how you've got that beautiful light to dark blend, but by picking up, so because we haven't got that light colour that's perfect, we've created it ourselves. How fabulous is that? That is like mixing watercolour paints. You know, it's just amazing. So to be able to do that with alcohol pens is a real, you know, really cool thing to do. So you can see that there, and now what I want to do is go on to the rosebud, and we're going to do the pinks that we've already used and the greens that we've used for this. So get those pens ready and we'll jump straight into that. It's lovely though, that, isn't it?